Welcome to the video. Today we'll be looking at tuberculosis, an infectious disease infecting 25% of people. I'm going to take you through the epidemiology of tuberculosis, meaning the incidence of disease in society, and then we'll look at the pathology, that being the symptoms and characteristics of the disease.
TB is mostly occurring in the lungs, pulmonary, but 15% of cases are extrapulmonary, occurring in the larynx, lymph nodes, pleura, brain, kidneys, bones or joints. Today we will focus on the pulmonary.
Mycobacterium tuberculosis. Tuberculosis is a disease of the lungs brought about by the bacteria Mycobacterium tuberculosis. Infection by species of the Mycobacterium tuberculosis complex, such as Tuberculosis, characterizes TB.
Discovered by Robert Koch in 1882, tuberculosis was then referred to as the White Plague, due to the light pallor of patients.
Tuberculosis bacilli can travel through the air, particularly in the event of a person with tuberculosis coughing, sneezing, or spitting. Let me talk you through some epidemiology of tuberculosis. As I mentioned earlier, tuberculosis affects 25% of the world's population. However, most of this cohort are actually not ill with the disease, and the bacteria is simply hanging out in their body. This is called latent TB. Approximately 10% of those with latent TB will develop active TB at some point. Those with immune deficiencies are more likely to get sick. TB is curable with best current resources in 90% of cases. A key issue in the treatment of TB is the cost and availability of treatment. Poor resources in developing countries leads to high mortality rates. TB remains the second leading cause of death from infectious disease worldwide. In Australia, the incidence of TB is low, with 5.3 cases per 100,000 population in 2015. However, as of 2019, it remains that the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander population of Australia are 6 times more likely to experience tuberculosis when compared with the non-Indigenous population. The new Strategic Plan for Control of Tuberculosis in Australia aims for zero disparity by 2035. Here you see a depiction of the bacterium causing tuberculosis. Note the long, oblong shape. This pathogen has a coat comprised of fatty molecules, causing it to be waxy in texture. This tough outer allows the bacterium to deflect most drugs. In understanding the significance of TB, it is important to recognise the role of the lungs as an integral part of the body. The action respiration perfuses blood with oxygen, which is supplied to the tissues including major organs such as the brain and heart. Alveoli are the centre of the gaseous exchange in the lung, topping up blood hemoglobin with oxygen and removing carbon dioxide to avoid toxicity. Pretty important. The immune system also plays a role in TB. Normally, our body has mechanisms in place to defend against pathogens, ridding our system of unwanted invaders. One of the mechanisms used by our immune system is phagocytosis, meaning the invading cell is engulfed by a much larger cell. Macrophages are key phagocytes and are often one of the primary responders to bacterial infection. Following infection, macrophage cells phagocytose the bacterium. The infected macrophages may produce signals known as cytokines and chemokines, which attract other cells. These cells form clusters called granulomas. In uncontrolled TB, the growing mass in the alveoli causes progressive tissue damage in the lungs.
Such destruction impedes gaseous exchange and causes irritation in the lungs and surrounding structures. An immune response is launched against the pathogen, destroying infected cells.
As the macrophages die, they release the numerous replicated bacilli. The bacterium can infest the lymph nodes, allowing spreading of the disease. Low perfusion of oxygen to major organs, as well as an exaggerated immune response, lead to a myriad of symptoms.
Let's look at those of pulmonary tuberculosis.
Infection in the lungs leads to breathlessness, possible cough with phlegm and blood. General symptoms of tuberculosis include night sweats, fatigue, poor appetite leading to weight loss. Progression through the lymph or bloodstream leads to symptoms in more distant tissues. This progression to the lymph nodes is called lymphadenopathy. If the disease spreads through the bloodstream, it becomes known as disseminated TB. Disseminated TB results in lesions shaped like millet seeds, thus the name miliary TB.
TB can be treated with drugs, however compliance is poor due to the amount and duration of medication, as well as cost. Poor compliance leads to strengthening of the pathogen and drug-resistant TB.
Thank you for listening to my video on tuberculosis. I hope you've enjoyed it and that you've learned something.